A glass gate at C17. One strange beep, and a child's boarding pass flashes. System hold. A tired agent doesn't look up, just taps the screen like it's a verdict. You're not boarding. They think it's routine. They think this family will quietly step aside. They have no idea what gets uploaded next, or who gets called after that. For Dr. Ethan Brooks, this was supposed to be the simplest part of the journey. A short flight, a few hours in the air, and then a night that had taken decades to earn. Ethan wasn't the kind of man who chased recognition. He lived in quiet spaces, observatories, research rooms, long nights under cold skies, searching for patterns most people would never notice. His work had slowly shaped conversations in his field, but he wore that achievement lightly. No titles on jackets, no name-dropping, no shortcuts through influence. He believed in process, in lines, in doing things the way they were supposed to be done. If a system existed, he trusted it. Maya knew that about him, and she loved him for it. But she also knew something else. Systems were built by people, and people carried assumptions with them. Maya had learned to read rooms long before she ever spoke in them. The slight pause before a smile, the way someone's eyes lingered, measuring instead of greeting, the tone that changed when respect turned into tolerance. She didn't call it bitterness, she called it awareness. It was a quiet skill, sharpened by experience. And today she felt it humming in her chest like a low warning signal. And then there was Lily, 10 years old, sitting between them, legs swinging, backpack pressed to her chest like it held something fragile and precious. Because to her, it did. This wasn't just a trip. This was a story she would tell at school. A story about her dad being invited to something important. About grown-ups who changed the world with ideas. About being allowed into rooms that usually lived only on television. Her eyes sparkled with a kind of pride she didn't yet have words for. Pride in her parents. Pride in being included. Pride in being seen as part of something that mattered. She kept whispering, "Is it tonight?" And Maya kept smiling. "Yes, sweetheart, tonight." That word mattered more than anyone around them realized. Tonight meant urgency. Tonight meant consequence. Tonight meant there was no margin for error. In the world of influence, tomorrow is flexible. Tonight is not. Miss tomorrow and you apologize. Miss tonight and the door closes. People leave. Conversations move forward without you. Decisions get made in rooms where your name is no longer present. This wasn't about ceremony. It was about access. About being in the room where futures quietly take shape. Ethan carried the invitation folded inside his jacket, not as leverage, but as a reminder of responsibility, of how far he had come, of how much trust had been placed in him by people who believed his voice belonged in larger conversations. He hadn't told Lily everything, not the pressure, not the stakes. He wanted her to feel wonder, not weight. But Maya understood the full shape of it. She saw how this night could ripple outward for years. Grants, collaborations, doors that rarely opened twice. And she also saw how fragile the moment was. Airports are strange that way. They make everything feel temporary. You can carry a lifetime of achievement in your bag and still be reduced to a barcode on a screen. Ethan stepped forward with calm confidence. Maya followed, steady and alert. Lily clutched her boarding pass like a ticket into a story she was proud to belong to. They were not thinking about conflict. They were not thinking about power. They were thinking about timing, about connections, about how rare it is when preparation finally meets opportunity. A short flight, a long invitation, and a single night that could quietly reshape an entire career. They didn't need special treatment. They didn't want exceptions. They just needed the system to work the way it promised it would. And none of them yet realized how quickly that promise was about to be tested. The line at Gate C17 moved the way airport lines always do. Slow, predictable. A shuffle of shoes and rolling wheels. A chorus of quiet sighs under bright, unforgiving lights. Ethan stepped up first, phone in hand. 3 electronic boarding passes ready to scan. He didn't look nervous. He didn't look rushed. He looked like a man who had done everything the right way. Because he had. Olivia Hart sat behind the counter with the kind of fatigue that turns people into machines. Her eyes were on the screen, not on faces. Her fingers moved on autopilot. Beep. Ethan's pass went through. Beep. Maya's pass went through. Lily leaned in, smiling, holding her phone with both hands like it was a golden ticket. Beep. And then the sound changed. Not a beep, not an error chime you could laugh off. Just a flat, ugly tone, like something had been rejected on purpose. Olivia's expression didn't shift into concern. It shifted into irritation. Her fingers tapped rapidly, her eyes narrowed at the monitor. Ethan blinked. Is everything okay? Olivia scanned it again. The same tone. She didn't look up. She didn't soften her voice. She just read what the screen told her. Seat 9D is on a system hold. Maya leaned slightly forward. A hold for what? Olivia's shoulders lifted in a small shrug. Internal security update. The system won't release it. Ethan's mind tried to keep it logical. Holds happen. Glitches happen. People click the wrong thing. The answer was always in the details. Okay, he said calmly. But we purchased these together. We're seated together. 9C, 9D, 9E. Here. He pulled up the confirmation email, the one with the timestamp, the seats, the payment, every checkbox filled. He held it out like a fact, like proof. Olivia glanced at it the way you glance at a flyer someone hands you on the street. Quick, empty, unmoved. The confirmation doesn't override the live system, she said. There it was. The sentence that shuts doors without slamming them. Ethan kept his voice steady. So what are our options? Olivia finally looked up, and for the first time her eyes actually landed on them. Not warmly, not kindly, just assessing. Like she was deciding how much energy this situation was going to cost her. You can board the 2 seats that are confirmed, she said, and she can be rebooked. Maya's head tilted. Rebooked to when? Olivia clicked. There's a later flight tonight, but it won't be with 3 seats together. Ethan's stomach tightened. Tonight. That one word again. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't plead. He tried reasoning, because that's what he had trained himself to believe in. She's 10, he said. We're not splitting our family. This is clearly an error. The door isn't even closed yet. Can you clear the hold? Olivia's mouth pressed into a thin line. I just told you, she said, sharper now. The system won't let me. Maya didn't argue emotion. She argued structure. Okay, she said, calm, even. Then please tell me the official reason code for the hold, and who has authority to remove it. Olivia's eyes flicked down to the screen again. Her fingers stopped for half a second, like Maya had asked something inconveniently specific. I don't have that, Olivia said. It's internal. Maya nodded once, like she expected that dodge. Then I'll ask it another way, she said. Can I have your full name and your employee ID, please? Olivia's eyebrows lifted. Why? Because we're going to need to document this, Maya said. And I'd like the reason for denial in writing, not a summary. The official reason. That did it. Olivia's posture changed. Not bigger, harder. Her tone flattened into something colder. "Ma'am," she said, stressing the word like a warning, "I'm not denying you. I'm telling you what the system is allowing." Ethan felt a flash of anger, hot and fast, and he swallowed it back down. He could hear Lily's breathing get smaller beside him, like she was trying to take up less space. He lowered his voice. "We're not trying to cause trouble," he said. "We're trying to get on the flight we paid for." Olivia exhaled like she'd heard that line 1,000 times and was tired of all of them. "And I'm trying to board the flight," she said. "If you want to argue, you can step aside." Step aside. It was a small phrase, but it carried a message bigger than the airport. You are now an inconvenience. Maya didn't flinch. She didn't take the bait. She stayed polite, but she sharpened the blade. "We're not arguing," she said. "We're requesting the proper process." So, again, who can remove the hold? A supervisor? A station manager? Olivia's eyes narrowed. A beat passed where she could have chosen helpfulness. Instead, she chose control. "I can call a manager," she said, "but it's going to be the same answer. This flight is in final boarding." Final boarding. Another brick. Ethan looked down at Lily. Her earlier excitement had drained out of her face like color pulled from paper. She clutched her phone tighter, staring at the screen that had just told her she didn't belong. And Ethan realized something in that moment. This wasn't just about a seat. This was about how quickly a person becomes a problem when a screen says so. Olivia lifted her chin. "So, what is it?" she asked. "Are you boarding the 2 seats or not?" Ethan didn't answer right away. Because if he answered wrong, the story ended here, with 2 people walking down a jetway, and a 10-year-old left behind with a system hold stamped onto her day like a label. Maya's hand slid gently onto Lily's shoulder, protective and steady. Ethan looked back at Olivia. His voice stayed controlled, but the air around them had changed. "Please call the manager," he said. And the moment Olivia reached for that phone, she wasn't looking at a family anymore. She was looking at a situation, and she was already annoyed that it existed. Within minutes, the manager arrived. Mark Donovan didn't rush. He didn't look stressed. He walked up with the calm of someone who knew the clock was on his side. A lanyard, a clipped smile, the posture of a man who had said no 1,000 times and rarely had to explain himself. Olivia straightened the moment she saw him, like the room had shifted into a hierarchy everybody understood. Mark glanced at the screen first. Not at Ethan, not at Maya, not at Lily. The screen got his attention. The people were secondary. "What seems to be the issue?" he asked, already sounding like he'd decided it wasn't going to be one. Elizabeth spoke quickly, like she'd been waiting to hand the problem off. "Seat 9D is on an internal hold. They want it cleared. They're refusing to board without the child." Mark nodded once, like that confirmed everything he needed to know. He turned to Ethan with a polite, practiced expression that never quite reached his eyes. "Sir," he said, "we're in final boarding. The flight is full. There's nothing to reseat." Ethan kept his voice measured. "We're not asking to reseat. We're asking to release the hold. We purchased these seats together. I have the confirmation." Mark held up a hand, not aggressively, just enough to stop the conversation from becoming a conversation. "I understand," he said, in the tone people use right before they do the opposite. "But the hold is internal. We can't override it at the gate." Maya stepped in, calm and clear. "Then what's the official reason code? And who can override it?" Mark blinked like the question was oddly personal. "Ma'am," he said, "that information isn't available to you." Maya didn't move. "So you're asking us to accept a decision you won't explain?" Mark's smile tightened. "I'm asking you to follow the boarding process." There it was again, not an answer, a label. Process, policy, procedure, words that sound neutral, words that let someone feel righteous while they inconvenience a family. Lily shifted closer to her mom. She didn't say anything. She just looked up at Ethan with eyes that were trying to understand how a phone screen could suddenly matter more than her. Ethan felt that protective heat rise in his chest again. He swallowed it. He knew how these moments worked. The moment you got emotional, you became the story they wanted you to be. So he stayed calm. He stayed respectful. "Mark," he said, reading the name on the badge. "I'm not trying to be difficult. We're traveling for a time-sensitive event tonight. We cannot miss it. And we cannot split our family." Mark's eyebrows lifted slightly at the first name address, like Ethan had reached a little too high. Like familiarity was a privilege. "Sir," he said, sharper now, "lots of people have time-sensitive events. That doesn't change the system." Maya watched him closely, not just his words, the rhythm of them, the way he didn't ask a single follow-up question, the way he wasn't curious. Because curiosity creates options, and Mark didn't want options. He wanted compliance. Ethan tried again, still calm, still polite. "I have documentation. I can show you the email, the seats, the purchase." Mark didn't even lean in. "The email doesn't matter," he said. "The live system is what we follow." Maya exhaled through her nose. She'd heard that sentence in different forms her whole life. It always meant the same thing. "I don't have to see you." Maya's voice stayed level. "Okay. Then I'd like your full name and your employee ID, and I want the reason for denial in writing." Mark's head tilted slightly, as if she'd just stepped over an invisible line. "We don't provide that," he said, "and we're not denying boarding. We're telling you what's available." Ethan looked around. People behind them were starting to stare. A few shifted impatiently. The line was forming. The pressure was building. That was part of the design. Make the family feel like the problem in front of an audience. Mark glanced past them toward the boarding lane, toward the gate scanner, toward the flow of passengers. The flow mattered more than the family. "This is not a debate," he said. "You have 2 confirmed seats. You can board now, or you can step aside and we'll rebook you." Maya's jaw tightened. She didn't raise her voice, but her words were sharper now. "She's 10, she said. "You're asking us to leave our child." Mark didn't blink. "I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm telling you the options." Options. Another word that sounded generous while doing harm. And this is where Maya understood what was really happening. This wasn't just a glitch. If it were a glitch, there would be urgency. There would be problem solving. There would be someone trying. This was something else. This was a tiny slice of power handed to someone who was tired, reinforced by someone who enjoyed the authority it gave him. Because there's a kind of danger that doesn't come from high offices or big titles. It comes from small places. A counter, a scanner, a badge, a rule book. Give a person one button that says yes or no, and some of them start to believe they're not just enforcing a process. They're judging a person. And in that moment, Mark wasn't looking at Ethan Brooks, the man. He was looking at a situation he could control. He was looking at a family he could pressure. And the more calmly they spoke, the more it irritated him. Because calm meant they weren't afraid. Mark leaned slightly forward, voice lower now, more direct. more final. "Sir," he said, "you need to make a decision. Right now." Ethan held his gaze. "I am making a decision," Ethan said quietly. "We're not leaving without our daughter." Mark's smile came back, small, almost amused. "Then you're choosing not to board," he said. And Maya felt it land like a verdict. Not on a screen, not in a system, on their dignity. Mark didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He just lifted his hand slightly, 2 fingers, a small gesture toward Olivia, and the energy around the gate shifted immediately, like a curtain dropping. Olivia turned back to her screen. Tap, tap, tap. And then the gate system made its decision out loud. A sharp electronic chime. Not an error. A closure. The glass boarding doors slid together with a clean, final motion. Smooth, quiet, unforgiving. Click. And that sound, tiny and mechanical, hit Ethan harder than any insult could have. Because it wasn't just the door closing. It was a message. Conversation over. Opportunity over. You don't get to negotiate with glass. Passengers kept walking past them, scanning their passes, stepping through like nothing was happening. A couple of people glanced over. Some slowed, curious. Most didn't. It's amazing how quickly strangers can look away when discomfort enters the room. Mark stepped to the side of the counter, close enough now that Ethan could smell his coffee and the faint mint of a breath strip. His voice dropped into something more controlled, more official. "Sir," he said, "you need to step away from the boarding area." Ethan blinked. "We're not blocking anything. We're trying to resolve." "This is final boarding," Mark cut in. "You've been given your options. We're not doing this at the counter." Maya tightened her grip on Lily's hand. Lily's face was crumpling fast now, like she'd been holding herself together by a thread, and the thread had just snapped. "Dad," she whispered, voice small. "Did I do something wrong?" Ethan's chest tightened. He turned toward her immediately, softer. No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong." But even as he said it, he felt the cruel irony of the moment, because the system was telling her the opposite. A screen said no, so the world said no. Maya looked at Mark, steady but strained. "We're asking for documentation," she said. "Your name, a reason code, something in writing." Mark's eyes hardened. "Ma'am, you're not entitled to internal security codes." "Then what are we entitled to?" Maya asked, calm but sharp. "Silence? Humiliation? Being told to leave like we're criminals?" Mark's jaw tightened. "Watch your tone." Ethan felt the air go thin, because that's what people say when they've run out of reasons. Watch your tone. Not, "Let me see what I can do." Not, "I understand this is upsetting." Just behave. Ethan inhaled slowly. He had spent his life in rooms where discipline mattered, laboratories, panels, meetings where one wrong phrase could derail a decade of work. He knew how to regulate himself, but now he wasn't regulating himself for a grant or a reputation. He was doing it so his child wouldn't watch her father get labeled. Because Mark wasn't just pushing them away, he was trying to define them. Mark leaned slightly forward. "If you continue to argue," he said, "I can document this as interference with operations." Maya's eyes widened. "Interference?" "Yes," Mark said flatly, "and that can impact future travel." There it was, the threat behind the policy. The kind of threat that doesn't leave bruises, but leaves fear. Ethan went still, not because he was intimidated, because he understood the stakes instantly. In airports, words like document and interference are not casual. They are weapons. They become notes in a file you can't see, a label you can't erase, a story you can't defend yourself against. And Ethan knew if he reacted wrong, if he raised his voice, if he stepped too close, if he let anger show in the wrong way, Mark could press that label onto them and walk away feeling justified. Lily started to cry. Not loud, not dramatic, the kind of crying that happens when a child tries to stop it and can't. She pressed her face into Maya's side, fingers gripping her mom's coat like it was the only stable thing left in the world. Maya rubbed her back, whispering, "I've got you, baby. I've got you." Ethan wanted to shout. He wanted to say, "This is ridiculous. This is wrong. Look at her." But he didn't. He stayed quiet for a few seconds that felt like an hour. Because in that silence, he was doing something most people don't realize is a skill. He was choosing the next move. Not the emotional move, the strategic one. Mark mistook that silence for surrender. "Sir," he said, voice firmer, "I'm instructing you to step away from the gate. Now." A few passengers nearby looked over again. A man with headphones pretended not to notice. A woman with a carry-on stared for a second, then looked down at her phone like the screen could protect her from the moment. No one said a word. No one asked if they were okay. No one interrupted the wrongness of it. And that was almost the worst part. Because when a child is crying and a family is being pushed out of a public space, and everyone around just keeps walking, it teaches you something brutal. Not about the airline, about people. And right there, under the bright terminal lights, Ethan realized the truth. This wasn't a simple mistake anymore. This was a public humiliation, signed and sealed by a sound, a chime, a click, and a glass door sliding shut in front of a 10-year-old girl who still believed adults were supposed to be fair. Now, pause the story for a second. Because maybe you're thinking, okay, what do you even do here? And here's the part most people never get taught. If you don't have a powerful contact, if you don't have a hotline, if you're just a regular traveler standing in front of a closed gate and a stubborn badge, you don't win by getting louder. You win by getting clearer. First, stay calm, but make it official. Ask for full names and employee IDs, not as a threat, as a record. Second, ask for the exact reason in writing, not "the system won't let me," the official reason, the code, the policy reference. Third, create your own evidence. Tell them you're recording for accuracy. You'd be shocked how fast behavior changes when people know the moment won't disappear. And fourth, don't walk away empty-handed. Ask for an incident report, a case number, something that proves you were there and something that proves what was said. Because in situations like this, the system counts on one thing: that you'll leave upset, but undocumented. And Mark Donovan was betting on that. He was betting they'd pick up their bags, swallow the humiliation, and disappear into the terminal like it never happened. But Ethan wasn't moving yet. Not because he wanted to fight, because he refused to let the story be written without him in it. Back in the terminal, the noise felt louder. Not because anything had changed. Suitcases still rolled, announcements still crackled, people still laughed into phones like the world was normal. But for the Brooks family, the world had narrowed. They sat in a row of cold airport chairs facing the runway, a wall of glass in front of them, planes drifting like slow, indifferent whales. And somewhere out there, the flight they were supposed to be on was pulling away from the gate without them. Ethan didn't speak at first. He stared through the glass like he could will the situation to reverse itself. Like logic could still fix what power had just broken. Maya sat upright, one arm around Lily, keeping her close, not just to comfort her, to anchor her, to remind her body that she was safe, even if her heart didn't believe it yet. Lily's crying had turned quiet, the kind that comes in little tremors, where the child tries to be brave, but the tears keep slipping out anyway. Her cheeks were wet, her shoulders shook in small bursts. And that was the cruelest part. A 10-year-old didn't understand policy. She understood rejection. Ethan finally exhaled, long and controlled. "I should have recorded," he murmured, more to himself than to Maya. Maya didn't scold him. She didn't say, "I told you." She just looked at him with that steady, exhausted clarity. "We did what we could," she said softly. "We stayed calm. We asked the right questions. They didn't want to answer." A pause. "And that's exactly why we need proof." Ethan nodded slowly. His eyes flicked down to Lily's phone, still in her small hands. The screen was dim now. Her boarding pass had become meaningless. Then a voice came from their side, low, careful, not intrusive. "Excuse me." They turned. A man stood there, late 20s, maybe early 30s, hoodie, messenger bag, phone in hand. He didn't look like airport staff. He looked like someone who lived online, someone who noticed details other people ignored. "My name's Ryan Cole," he said. I write about passenger rights, travel issues, stuff like that." Ethan's expression tightened immediately, protective, wary. Ryan raised his free hand. "I'm not here to make it worse," he said quickly. I saw what happened, and it didn't sit right with me." Maya studied him for a beat, the way she always did. Not suspicious, strategic. "You saw the whole thing?" she asked. "Most of it," Ryan said. "I was already recording because, honestly, the tone from the counter felt off." And when the manager came in, it got worse. He hesitated, then added, "I went live for a minute. Not to dox anyone, just to document what I was seeing." Ethan swallowed. "You recorded it?" Ryan nodded. "Yeah, and it saved automatically. It's backed up." That word mattered, backed up. Because once something is stored somewhere else, it's harder to erase, harder to twist, harder to deny. Maya's shoulders loosened by a fraction. "Can you send it?" she asked. "Of course," Ryan said. "I can send you the cloud link, and I can include timestamps. The exact moment the gate closed, the exact words." Ethan looked down at Lily. She was still trembling, still crying quietly into Maya's side. And then something happened that nobody noticed right away. Lily's phone buzzed softly in her hands. Not a notification, a recording indicator, a tiny red dot. Maya caught it first, her eyes sharpened. "Lily," she whispered gently, lifting the phone a little. "Honey, what is this?" Lily sniffed, confused. I don't know," she said. I was holding it and I pressed something." Maya tapped the screen. "Audio recording, running, minutes long." Maya's breath caught. "You were recording?" Lily's lip trembled. "Am I in trouble?" "No," Maya said immediately, firm and tender at the same time. "No, baby, you're not in trouble. You did nothing wrong." Ethan leaned in, heart pounding now for a different reason. "Because audio catches what cameras sometimes miss. Cameras capture faces,
gestures, the public version. Audio captures tone, the private version. The way people talk when they think they're safe.
Maya stopped the recording with one careful tap, like she was handling something fragile. Ryan's eyes widened when he saw the screen. "Oh, wow," he breathed. That's big." Maya nodded once, already thinking 3 steps ahead.
"Okay," she said quietly. "Ryan, send us your link, with time and date. And I want the raw file too, if you have it."
Ryan was already scrolling. "I'll send both," he said. "You'll have the original, and you'll have a share link." Maya turned to Ethan, voice low.
"We're not doing this to be petty," she said. "We're doing this so they can't rewrite what happened."
Ethan stared at the phone in Lily's hands, then at Lily herself. She was the smallest person in this whole situation, and somehow she had captured the most important thing. Because that's what evidence does. It doesn't scream, it doesn't argue, it doesn't beg to be believed. It just sits there, patient, unmovable. And here's what most people don't realize. Good evidence isn't just a clip. Good evidence has structure. It has a time, a place, a sequence. Who spoke first? Who escalated? What was said? What was threatened? What was denied? That's what turns a story into a case. Maya slid her phone out, steady hands, calm voice. "Ryan," she said, "text me the link. And include the timestamp where the manager says interference." Ryan nodded. "Got it." Maya looked down at Lily, brushing hair off her wet cheek. "You did good," she whispered, so softly only Lily could hear it. "You did so good." And Ethan felt something shift inside him. Not relief, not victory. Something colder, sharper. Clarity. Because now, for the first time since that glass door had closed, they had something the system didn't control. They had the truth. Saved, backed up, stored in the cloud, far away from Gate C17, far away from Mark Donovan's badge, far away from Olivia's screen. And once truth lives somewhere permanent, it stops being just a moment. It becomes leverage. Ethan stared at the messages on his phone like they were a cliff edge. Ryan's link sat there. The cloud file. The time-stamped clip. Proof, neatly packaged. And still, Ethan hesitated. Because there was another button on his screen. A name he didn't like using as a lever. Helen Wright. He'd saved her contact months ago, back when the invitation first came in. Back when everything still felt clean, earned, straightforward, like the world worked the way it was supposed to. Ethan wasn't the kind of person who dropped names. He wasn't the kind of person who said, "Do you know who I am?" In his world, the work spoke, the data spoke, the results spoke. And asking for help from someone in the federal orbit? It felt like cheating, like skipping the line everyone else had to stand in. But then he looked at Lily. Her eyes were puffy. Her face was blotchy from crying. She was trying to be quiet now, like she had already learned she was taking up too much space. And Ethan felt something harden in his chest. This wasn't about pride. This wasn't about being above it. This was about not letting a system teach his daughter the wrong lesson. Because if they walked away and took the later flight like obedient little figures, Lily would remember one thing forever: that when someone humiliates you in public, you swallow it. Ethan glanced at Maya. She didn't say a word. She didn't push him. She just gave him one look that was both tired and certain. "Do what you have to do." Ethan exhaled. Then he tapped Helen's name. The phone rang once, twice, and when she answered, her voice was calm, professional, like a person who didn't waste time on small talk because her job was built around time. Helen Wright. Ethan swallowed. Helen? It's Ethan Brooks. A beat. Then her tone shifted, not warmer, but sharper, focused. Dr. Brooks, where are you right now? Ethan blinked. He hadn't even explained yet. We're at Pacific Northwest International, he said. Gate C17. We were denied boarding. Denied? Helen repeated, like she was already translating that word into consequences. What flight number? Ethan looked down. Flight 482, departing to Nevada, connecting onward. Who is the gate supervisor? Helen asked. Ethan glanced at Maya, then at Ryan's note. Mark Donovan, he said. He's the shift manager. The gate agent is Olivia Hart. Current status? Helen asked. Are you still in the terminal? Yes, Ethan said. We're seated near the gate. They told us to leave the area. Don't, Helen said immediately. One word, no hesitation. It didn't sound like advice. It sounded like instruction. Ethan's mouth went dry. We're not trying to cause— Listen to me, Helen cut in, steady and low. Do not rebook. Do not leave. Do not get into another argument. Stay exactly where you are. Ethan felt his pulse climb. Helen, I hate calling like this. I tried to resolve it. I don't care what you hate, she said. Not unkindly, but blunt. I care what happens next. A pause. Then she added, Do you have documentation? Maya leaned in. We do, she said, loud enough to be heard. Video, timestamps, and audio recording. Good, Helen said. Hold it. Don't post it. Don't threaten them with it. Just keep it. Ethan blinked. Why not post it? Because once you post, Helen said, you lose control of the timeline. That sentence landed like a weight. Control of the timeline. Ethan had spent his life respecting processes, peer review, protocol, sequence. And here was Helen, speaking the same language, just in a world where the stakes weren't journals and grants, they were reputations, investigations, corporate fear. Helen continued, fast now. Text me the flight number and the names you just gave me. Spell them. Include your current location in the terminal, and do not talk to anyone else from the airline unless they come to you. Ethan whispered, Okay. And Ethan? Helen added. He paused. Yes? Her voice lowered just slightly. This is no longer a customer service issue. Ethan felt his stomach drop. It's a risk issue, Helen said. And risk gets handled at a very different level. The line went quiet for half a second. Then, stay put. Give me 15 minutes. Before Ethan could respond, she hung up. Ethan stared at the dead screen. Maya didn't move. Ryan didn't speak. Even Lily went still, like her body sensed the air had changed. And that's the moment most people don't understand until they live through it. Not every phone call has power. Most calls go into a maze, menus, holds, scripts. But some calls don't go sideways. They go up. Because when Ethan called Helen Wright, he didn't reach a desk clerk. He reached a node. A person who connects agencies, schedules, public optics, and the kind of quiet government attention airlines never want. For an airline, there are 3 things scarier than an angry passenger: legal exposure, media exposure, and political exposure. And when a situation even whispers in the direction of federal oversight, all 3 wake up at once. At that point, it's not about seat 9D. It's not about system hold. It becomes one question, asked in a boardroom tone. How fast does this become a headline? And how much does it cost us if it does? Ethan looked up at the glass wall again, the runway beyond it. A minute ago, they were a family being pushed aside. Now, without a single raised voice, without a single threat, the story had left Gate C17, and it was climbing. While the Brooks family sat under fluorescent lights staring at the runway like it had personally betrayed them, another room, hundreds of miles away, was about to snap to attention. In Utah, at the airline's regional headquarters, the day was moving at the speed of routine. A conference room, beige walls, a half-eaten tray of pastries, screens filled with numbers that only mattered because they were numbers. Jonathan Pierce sat at the head of the table, listening with the kind of patience you develop when you've spent years inside a system that runs on checklists. A quarterly update, on-time performance, a complaint trend, a slide about customer experience initiatives that sounded good and said nothing. It was the corporate version of a lullaby. Until the door opened, not gently. It swung wide, and a man stepped in without asking permission, phone pressed to his ear, face pale in a way that didn't match the calm of the room. Jonathan looked up, annoyed for half a second. Then he saw the expression, and he knew. The man didn't say, "Sorry to interrupt." He didn't say, "This can wait." He just said two words that changed the temperature in the room. Code red. Every head turned. Jonathan didn't ask what that meant, not out loud. Because everyone who lives inside a corporation knows there are different kinds of problems. There are the problems you solve with vouchers. There are the problems you solve with apologies. And then there are problems you solve with speed. Because if you don't, they become something else. The man lowered the phone and spoke quickly. "We just got a call routed through a federal contact. Passenger denied boarding at Pacific Northwest International. Minor involved. Threatened with an interference report." Jonathan's jaw tightened. Federal contact. Denied boarding. Minor. Those three phrases did not belong in the same sentence. "Names?" Jonathan asked. "Gate Agent Olivia Hart. Shift Manager Mark Donovan. Flight 482. Jonathan's fingers didn't move, but his mind did. Because he wasn't thinking, who's right? He wasn't thinking, did they follow policy? He was thinking like corporate leadership always thinks when the stakes rise. How big does this get? How fast does it spread? How ugly does it look when it's told by someone else? He pushed his chair back and stood. "Get Lucas Meyer on the line. Now." Someone fumbled for a number. Someone else started pulling up internal logs. Jonathan didn't need the full story yet. He needed the shape of the risk. Because here's the cold truth about how these systems work. They don't always move for fairness. They move for exposure. And what Helen Wright had just signaled was exposure at a level that could not be handled by customer service. This was the kind of issue that triggers audits, inquiries, internal investigations, the kind of thing that makes government partners ask questions. The kind of thing that turns one family at one gate into a brand crisis. The line connected. Lucas Meyer's voice came through, slightly out of breath. He sounded like a man who was already juggling 10 fires. "Lucas," Jonathan said, voice flat. "Where are you?" "At the airport," Lucas answered. "What's going on?" Jonathan didn't waste time with drama. "You have a family at Gate C17, Ethan Brooks, Maya Brooks, 10-year-old daughter, denied boarding, threatened with an interference report." A pause. Lucas swallowed. I haven't heard." "You're hearing it now," Jonathan snapped. I don't care what you heard. I care what's true. Lucas's tone sharpened. Understood. Here's what you're going to do, Jonathan said, and the room went silent around him, listening. You're going to locate them immediately. You're going to apologize directly. You're going to take Olivia Hart and Mark Donovan off the floor. Effective now. Lucas hesitated. Jonathan, if I pull them, Jonathan said. Suspend their access. Start an incident review. I want statements. I want time logs. I want everything. Lucas exhaled. Okay. And Lucas, Jonathan added, do not offer a voucher. Lucas didn't respond at first. Then, quietly, what do you want me to offer? Jonathan's eyes flicked to the man who had walked in with code red, then to the screen of flight schedules, then to the simple fact that there was no clean, cheap fix for this. He said the sentence every airline hates to say. Find a way to move them. Today. There was another pause, longer this time. A charter? Lucas asked. If that's what it takes, Jonathan said. Because this is the part most people don't understand until they see it. When a company is truly afraid, it doesn't look for the cheapest solution. It looks for the fastest solution. Speed is not generosity. Speed is damage control, and within minutes, the machinery of the airline shifted. Not with compassion, with urgency. Calls fired off, permissions unlocked, budgets that usually required meetings suddenly became approved. A transport plan materialized. A luxury electric sedan was dispatched to the curb at Pacific Northwest International with an instruction. Wait for the Brooks family. No questions. A short hop was arranged to Executive Desert Ridge in Nevada, where a charter turboprop, clean, quiet, and ready, could get them back into the air without touching the regular schedule. All of it happening not because someone had suddenly become moral, but because the problem had climbed high enough to become dangerous. Back in the terminal, the Brooks family didn't see any of that. They just saw the same glass wall, the same departing planes, the same people walking past them like they were invisible. Until a man in a suit moved fast through the crowd. Lucas Meyer. He didn't stroll. He didn't slow down to check his phone. He moved like someone who had been told very clearly that his job depended on the next 30 seconds. He spotted them, adjusted his expression, softened his voice. And when he reached them, he didn't start with excuses. He didn't start with, let me explain. He looked at Ethan, then at Maya, then at Lily's swollen eyes, and he said the one sentence that made the air go still. We handled human beings, Lucas said, like a line in a system. Ethan didn't respond. Maya didn't either. Because in that moment, they felt it. The whiplash. The same company that had treated them like a nuisance was now treating them like a crisis. And Lily, still tucked against Maya's side, looked up at Lucas with the kind of wary curiosity only a child has. Like she was trying to understand what had just happened. How the world could go from no to sir so fast. And that's where Maya's heart tightened. Because this wasn't just about a flight anymore. This was about what Lily would learn from today. If the lesson was, you only matter when you have leverage, then the system had stolen something bigger than a seat. It had stolen a child's faith in fairness. Maya's hand tightened around Lily's, and Lucas, as if he could sense the weight of that, lowered his voice again. We're going to get you where you need to be, he said, tonight, not tomorrow. He nodded toward the exit. The car is waiting. The moment the Brooks family stepped into the charter cabin, the world got quiet. No crowd, no announcements, no gate agents with clipped voices and wandering eyes. Just soft lighting, clean seats, a faint hum that felt almost respectful. It was the kind of calm that makes your body realize how tense it's been. Lily climbed into her seat like she was entering a different universe. Her shoulders were still tight, but her breathing started to slow. The tears didn't stop instantly. They never do. But the panic softened. And when Maya buckled her in, Lily leaned into her mother's side and finally let her eyelids rest. Not because she understood what happened, but because, for the first time in an hour, no one was telling her family to disappear. Ethan sat across from them, hands folded, eyes fixed on nothing. People love to call moments like this a victory, but Ethan didn't feel victorious. He felt exposed. Because when he looked down through the small window and saw the airport terminal shrinking beneath them, he didn't see a win. He saw a truth. A cold one. The system hadn't changed its mind because it suddenly saw their humanity. It changed its mind because the risk got big enough. That's the part that stays with you. Not the upgraded seat, not the shiny solution. The realization that dignity can be denied in public and only restored in private once somebody important gets nervous. Maya knew Ethan was thinking the same thing. She didn't need him to say it. She could see it in his jaw, in the way his eyes refused to celebrate. And while the charter lifted into the sky, back in that glass terminal, the story didn't end. Because Ryan Cole was still there. And Ryan wasn't angry in the way people expect. He was focused. He had the live stream clip saved. He had the timestamp. He had the exact moment the glass doors slid shut, that sharp electronic chirp sealing the decision like it was official law. And now he had something else. A second angle no one planned for. When Lily had been crying, her small hands shaking as she clung to her phone, she'd accidentally hit record. She didn't do it to catch anyone. She did it the way kids do everything in fear, by grabbing what feels familiar. And the audio that came out of that moment was different than the polished tone at the counter. It caught the voice people use when they think no one is listening. It caught the casual certainty, the little jokes, the dismissive phrasing, the kind of language that turns human beings into problems to be managed. Maya listened to a few seconds of it on Ryan's phone, and her face changed. Not rage, resolve. Because she understood something very clearly. Good evidence isn't just a video. Good evidence has context, time, place, names, the sequence of events. It tells the story in a way a system can't wiggle out of. So Maya did what a lot of people don't think to do in the moment. She got organized. "Send me the cloud link," she said quietly. "And include the timestamps. The full clip, not the edited version." Ryan nodded. No ego, no performance. "Already uploading. And don't post the child's face," Maya added, calm but firm. Ryan didn't argue, understood. Because for Maya, this was never about revenge. It was about protection. About making sure the world couldn't rewrite what happened to her daughter. Back online, the post hit like a match to dry grass. It wasn't long. It didn't need to be. Just the locked glass doors, the beep, the stunned silence, a family pushed aside like they were inconvenient furniture. And within hours, people did what people always do when something finally feels too familiar to ignore. They shared it. Not because they loved drama, but because they recognized the feeling. That helpless, humiliating moment when policy becomes a weapon, and you realize the person holding it doesn't even have to be cruel to hurt you. And under the reposts, the same question kept appearing, over and over. Why didn't anyone say anything? Because that's the most unsettling part of this story. Not Olivia, not Mark, Not even the corporate machine that only moved once the right phone rang. The most unsettling part was the crowd. The people who watched. The people who heard the tone shift. The people who saw a child crying and a family being cornered, and decided that silence was safer. They weren't monsters. They were normal.
And that's what should bother you.
Because most injustice doesn't survive on evil alone. It survives on quiet. On people telling themselves, it's not my business. On that soft internal voice that says, I don't want trouble. And suddenly, a small slice of power becomes a lot of power, because no one challenges it. So here's the question this story leaves behind. If you were standing there that day, if you heard the beep, if you saw the doors lock, if you watched a child's face collapse in confusion, would you stay quiet? Or would you say one simple sentence? Hey, that's not right. Not a speech, not a fight. Just a line that reminds the world you're paying attention. Because sometimes dignity isn't protected by the powerful. Sometimes it's protected by ordinary people who refuse to be part of this silence. And if you've ever been in a moment like this, at an airport, at a counter, in a hospital waiting room, tell me. What did you do? And if you could relive it, what would you do differently? Because the real lesson here isn't just stay calm, it's stay clear. Get names, get reasons, get it in writing. Make the truth easy to prove, and keep your dignity intact, not by begging for it, but by holding it like it already belongs to you.